Hello, I'm Maciej Mikos and you're watching World News Tonight, live from Warsaw. The release of the latest batch of the Epstein files is triggering a political fallout across Europe, exposing how the disgraced financiers network meddled with policymakers far beyond the United States. More on that in a moment, but first, let's take a look at tonight's headlines. Poland is invited to join the E6, a group of Europe's biggest economies. Germany arrests members of networks supplying sanctioned goods to Russia. And a record number of Poles will undergo a military qualification assessment this year. The newly released Epstein files show that the late American financier was willing to share information on Donald Trump with Russia's Putin and Lavrov. But the files show Epstein's empire of influence stretched to many corners of Europe, with Latvia alone mentioned over 500 times. Aaron Damon has the details.
The office of President of the United States.
Donald Trump, the man who would become President of the United States, side by side with Jeffrey Epstein, the man who would be convicted as a serial sex offender. That NBC footage from 1992, captured on Trump's own Mar-a-Lago estate, now coming back to haunt the president, with his name repeatedly mentioned in the millions of Epstein files released by the Department of Justice.
I have nothing to do with Jeffrey Epstein. I threw him out of my club many years ago because I thought he was a sick pervert.
And yet, this is a story that has his name entangled, including revelations that Epstein pushed to meet with Russia's Vladimir Putin and offer information about Trump, with the late financier trying to hash out arrangements via email between 2011 and 2014. It remains unclear if Epstein ever met with the Russian president, but he also claimed he could deliver tips on Trump to Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov. And it's not just Russia. Despite Epstein hanging himself in his jail cell 7 years ago, the life he led has triggered a political earthquake felt all the way in Central and Eastern Europe. Latvia is among the countries referenced more than 500 times in the document dump and described as a place where girls could be recruited for sex work. In one email exchange, an anonymous sender even wrote that he had received a personal invitation from Latvia's Prime Minister to visit the country and, quote, say hello. Andris Berzins, the country's Prime Minister at the time, strongly denying any links.
I haven't invited anyone to my place, especially not to come and say hello. Why would I need someone to say hello to? The text is kind of odd, so I won't be able to satisfy you with anything interesting. In my opinion, there's nothing interesting there.
Further south, Slovakia is also facing the fallout of the Epstein files, with the resignation of Miroslav Lajčák, a top advisor to Slovak Prime Minister Robert Fico. The documents show Lajčák was not just talking about girls with Epstein, but also taking a very different tack to the pro-European image he's long presented publicly, as he allegedly worked to set up meetings between Russia's Lavrov and far-right American strategist Steve Bannon.
The explosive discovery that he was sending to Jeffrey Epstein, his SMS that he loved Minister Lavrov, and he was preparing the meeting of Steve Bannon with the European politicians or even Slovak politicians. So he was representing Slovak social democracy, formally this party's social democracy, but at the same time, in the clandestine, he was acting in a completely different direction.
Lajčák firmly denies any wrongdoing, insisting he was never offered any sexual services by Epstein and did not know the extent of the predator's crimes. Even so, Lajčák has become another powerful politician to fall on his sword over Epstein's web of hurt and influence.
We are 6 deciding countries that have agreed to speed up together, said German Finance Minister in Warsaw today. Poland, along with Germany, France, Italy, Spain and the Netherlands, is joining the group of EU's biggest economies to boost the bloc's competitiveness and defense capabilities. Michiel van Blomstein has this report.
buttering up Poland for a not-so-new idea. Trying to convince Warsaw of the need for a two-speed European Union would normally be akin to selling sand in the desert. This time, however, Germany's renewed offer for creating a two-speed Europe has a twist. Poland is invited. Warsaw had an answer ready.
It has our support in principle.
We won't be a new institution, no exclusive club, but we are 6 deciding countries that have agreed to speed up together.
This so-called E6 group picks out the 6 largest European economies to bypass the regular EU decision-making process on economic issues. Besides Poland and Germany, Klingbau's offer extends to France, Italy, Spain and the Netherlands. Together, the 6 countries represent around 70% of the EU's population. However, they lack the numbers to attain even a qualified majority in European Council voting, which demands at least 55% of the member states. And some decisions even require unanimity. That is where Germany's proposal comes in. If held back by the rest of the bloc, they agreed to push ahead on certain topics regardless. These topics include strengthening the euro in the global markets, reducing dependence on third countries, including China, for critical raw materials, improving coordination of defense investments, pushing forward the capital markets union. Because despite the single market being the cornerstone of the European Union, the ongoing lack of a single capital market is a huge barrier for European investments.
There is capital in Europe. Europe has savings, but that capital is often not leveraged effectively enough for both domestic economies and European economic growth.
The idea of a two-speed Europe is nothing new. Letting member states integrate at different levels and different speeds has, however, drawn the ire of smaller or poorer countries, including Poland, out of fear being left behind. But instead of letting it depend on whether a country is a net contributor to the bloc and part of the Eurozone, Klingbau's E6 initiative simply looks at economic size. The fact that Poland is not a member of the Eurozone and still uses the zloty is not an issue for Klingbau, and he has indicated the format remains open to other countries as well. For TVP World, Michiel van Blommestein.
British Prime Minister Keir Starmer would like his country to join the EU's safe defence loan scheme, thus strengthening the ties with Europe and regaining access to the bloc's single market. This, as EU officials tell TVP World, that the European Commission is open to talks with London. Our correspondent Alex Cadier reports from Brussels.
Well, this new charm offensive from Keir Starmer, the British Prime Minister, comes at a time when London is particularly worried of a turn in Brussels towards made in Europe. European Commission, the European member states wanting to boost European businesses in the face of American cantankerism when it comes to trade, American tariffs, etc. So clearly there's a push in Europe to focus on itself, that a concern for London. So we've seen Keir Starmer making overtures, saying that he wants to see more cooperation on defence. He wants the UK to be able to have joint projects under the EU's safe defence funding. He wants the €90 billion loan to Ukraine to allow Ukraine to buy British weapons if need be. He presents the UK as a partner for Europe on security. He also wants the UK to align better with the EU single market on areas of national interest. On that, I put the question to the European Commission's chief spokesperson as to whether or not the UK could better align with the single market, could have some kind of deal. This was the response.
Our single market is really one of the treasures of the EU, or if I were to put it in a British context, it's really the jewel of the crown, right? So we very much appreciate that these advantages of the single market are recognized by Prime Minister Starmer. Now, we will be having a summit with the UK soon. I understand there's not a final date yet agreed, but this will be the occasion to discuss with the UK what exactly they have in mind and how they propose to go about it. So that's all we can say for the moment.
So perhaps those appeals from London falling on relatively deaf ears here in Brussels. There is a real concern in London that the EU and the UK should be working more together in a world where, as I said, the United States is more and more aggressive on trade. Perhaps those in Brussels will see that argument. For now, they say, let's talk. We cannot yet accept a deal with the UK. In Brussels, I'm Alex Cadier for TVP World.
235,000 Polish men and women will undergo a military qualification assessment this year. In the coming years, Poland intends to create an army 500,000 strong to face the threat posed by Russia. Our defense correspondent Zuzanna Jurek has this report.
235,000 civilians. That's how many Poles have been summoned for the annual military qualification assessment, a record-breaking number in the history of post-communist Poland. The assessment is mainly directed at men born in 2007. However, men between the ages of 20 and 24 who have not yet completed the military fitness assessment, as well as those deemed unfit in last year's assessment, are also required to attend. Additionally, for the first time ever, women have also been summoned. The list includes women born between 1999 and 2007 who are considered to have useful qualifications, primarily medicine or IT. Female university students turning 19 may also be called up for the assessment.
It is hardly possible to really create an army of 300,000 and more without women being way more involved. There is an understanding that for years, because it wasn't necessary, we haven't been doing this. There are generations who have never been involved in any military service. That's the moment when we have to understand that this is necessary.
Military fitness assessments replaced mandatory military service, which was abolished in 2008. Its purpose is not to automatically conscript young people into the army, but to determine their physical and mental fitness for potential service. Currently, the Polish armed forces number 216,000 people, including 164,000 professional soldiers. The remaining personnel is divided between territorial defense forces and reservists. This year alone, up to 30,000 people will also answer their call to arms in the form of voluntary military service. But as Prime Minister Tusk explained last year, Poland has much bigger ambitions.
We will be able to use several avenues to build an army 500,000 strong. The number will include reservists, but also volunteers not interested in regular service, who will receive training that will make them full-fledged soldiers in a conflict situation. The training effort will be sweeping enough to basically cover every military-age man in Poland, and women too.
This ambition was ratified via the Armed Forces Development Programme, the master blueprint for how Poland intends to spend hundreds of billions of zlotys to transition from a medium-sized military to the dominant conventional land power in Europe. According to the document, over the next 14 years, Poland will aim to create an army of 300,000 with an additional 200,000 reservists. 400,000 civilians will undergo basic training each year. Experts say that though these goals are ambitious, they may actually be feasible.
We have to understand that the army doesn't have to be understood in this traditional way, that this is only the need for people on the battlefields. More and more works, more and more jobs, and the kind of skills can be dual use in a way.
The military qualification assessment will last from February 2nd until the end of April, serving as the basis for determining the potential manpower available to live up to these ambitious proposals. For TVP World, Zuzanna Jurek.
German authorities have detained 5 people suspected of shipping banned goods to Russian defense companies. The investigation shows that over 16,000 deliveries were made since the beginning of the full-scale war in Ukraine. Natalia Komarov reports on the Sanctions evasion scheme.
This footage shows German authorities raiding industrial facilities in the port town of Lübeck on Monday as part of an investigation into a criminal network allegedly circumventing EU sanctions to export industrial goods to Russian defense companies.
Ukrainians found in Russian ammunition, rockets, drones, parts from Western countries, from the European Union, from the United States. And they wonder how they gone to Russia.
4 men have been arrested and 1 detained, with Germany's National Prosecution Office identifying Nikita S., a German-Russian national, as the main suspect.
Nikita S. is the sole shareholder and managing director of a trading company based in Lubeck. The defendants use at least one other shell company in Lubeck, sham customers both within and outside the European Union, and a Russian company as the recipient, for which Nikita S. also holds a responsible position. The procurement network was allegedly orchestrated by Russian state agencies.
According to German prosecution, the network has managed to ship around 16,000 deliveries worth over 30 million euros since Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine in February 2022. This is yet another story of Russian espionage coming out of Germany in recent weeks. On January 21st, Berlin issued an arrest warrant for a woman identified as Ilona W., an alleged Russian informant. Just a day later, Russian military attaché Andrei Mayorov was declared persona non grata.
We do not accept espionage in Germany, and particularly not under the cover of diplomatic status. We summoned the Russian ambassador to the Federal Foreign Office today and informed him that the individual who spied on behalf of Russia is to be expelled.
According to experts, Germany might be a hotspot for Russian espionage in the EU due to the historical ties between the two countries.
Thousands of Russians, due to German roots, wandered to Germany and became citizens of Germany. And among them was recruited agents of Russian services.
The investigation in Lubeck, conducted with the support of Germany's Federal Intelligence Service, is set to continue. Further searches are expected, with 5 extra suspects remaining at large. For TVP World, Natalia Komarov.
With temperatures dropping as low as minus 27 degrees Celsius, hundreds of Poles enjoy the Arctic weather, skiing or skating on frozen rivers. But the extreme cold poses an extreme danger to health too. Laura Hazanov reports on a record-breaking winter in Poland.
Poland remains in the grips of a historic cold snap, with temperatures plunging below minus 20 degrees Celsius across much of the country. And for many, in the midst of the winter holidays, the timing couldn't be better.
It's our 5th time here. We love the Zieleniec ski resort because of the variety of ski runs. They're diverse, especially in terms of downhill routes, and we can count on snow.
Despite a ban from local authorities, hundreds dared to step out onto the frozen Motława River in the historic northern port city of Gdańsk. But for those with nowhere to go, the situation is dire. Arctic air from Finland has brought temperatures as low as minus 27 degrees Celsius in the country's northeast, with wind chill reaching minus 35 degrees on Monday morning. 14 of Poland's 16 regions remain under frost warnings.
At temperatures like the ones we're experiencing now, especially at night, hypothermia can develop very quickly, particularly if someone is improperly dressed or under the influence of alcohol. People who are not actively moving are especially at risk. First-degree hypothermia can occur in as little as 30 minutes.
The Interior Ministry has confirmed that all railway stations nationwide are open 24 hours a day, offering shelter during the cold spell. Local governments have also been urged to make bus stations available wherever possible.
We are primarily trying to encourage people to accept the help offered by various aid organizations. We also try to persuade people whenever possible to follow us to these shelters, at least for the period of the most severe cold.
Authorities are also warning of a hidden danger. Carbon monoxide, as increased use of heaters, has led to dozens of poisonings over the past months. With at least 40 lives lost to hypothermia since November, this winter is already the deadliest Poland has seen in 4 years. For TVP World, Laura Hazanov.
Poland is joining the group of 6 biggest EU economies. So what does it mean for the country? And what will be the consequences for the entire European Union? To discuss it, we're joined by Jan Krzysztof Bielecki, former Prime Minister of Poland. Good evening, Mr. Prime Minister, and welcome to TVP World.
Very good evening to you.
So it's really cold in Warsaw today, but it seems that the hell has frozen over too, because after many years, if not decades, of this narrative of Europe of two-speed, which was very unfavorable for Poland. Now Poland is invited to join the group of E6, the six countries, and strengthen the narrative of Europe of two speeds, but now it is in Poland's favor. So is this the Europe of the two-speed that Poland agrees to?
Well, I wouldn't go that far, at least at this stage. Yes, you're perfectly right. Since the beginning of the process of Polish integration with the Western Europe and the European Union, there was endless discussion about multi-speed Europe and different combination of countries which were eager to accelerate and those who were in favor of slower pace. But this approach I would understand as probably the only possible solution for the European Union member countries, which is so-called coalition of the willing. So if we cannot change the...
Not to be mistaken with the coalition of the willing for Ukraine's benefit.
Yes, that's one of the opportunities. But what I'm saying is that if you cannot structurally change the organization, because you will never get through with a new treaty, or you will need maybe a decade or so. So if you cannot proceed forward according to the amended law, because the situation needs you to have amended law, then the only solution for this proposal, as for any different solution, as also like this coalition of the willing for the sake of Ukraine, this is the only solution where some countries could agree upon a narrow, hopefully narrow scope of activity and say, okay, we will to go forward at a little bit faster pace. And as the outcome of the situation, we had a recently meeting of those six finance ministers of those countries. I think it was even on online only. And when the Polish finance minister put forward a suggestion that maybe the scope of the group E6, as sometimes they call it, should be on deregulation. This is what the Polish government recently introduced quite successfully, or improvement of competitiveness.
Precisely.
But in my opinion, the narrower is the scope, the better for the solution.
Mr. Prime Minister, Lars Klingbeil, Germany's finance minister, said today, let me quote, "We won't be a new institution, no exclusive club, but we are six deciding countries that have agreed to speed up together." So apart from the fact that it's, how you have explained it, it's created to bypass all these vetoes within the EU, what should we expect from this no club of six European countries?
That was a little bit proven during this my first coalition of the willing for the security of Ukraine.
Yes.
Where exactly they managed to put forward solutions which were opposed, blocked by a single country. So can you imagine that 27 countries is facing a serious problem, and then with the opposition of one little member state, everybody is obliged to put it on hold and wait until sometimes through kind of a horse trading negotiations, the single one will eventually accept the proposal. This is not how European Union should be operating in the situation of the present geopolitics, tensions, war, at our doorstep. Now we have to act quickly.
Right, and talking about the pace, the speed of things. Now, one of the ideas to form this group is to speed up the process of safeguarding Europe with more weapons. Now, how will this translate this economic initiative into our collective safety?
Well, this is a very good example because we speak these days a lot about so-called dual-use manufacturing, which could be as important for improving competitiveness of Europe as, I don't know, automotive manufacturing 10 or 20 years ago. So if we are in a different world, then we need maybe satellites, but also satellites we are used for the army as well as for the civilian purpose. So recently in Poland, I spotted a very interesting company which is manufacturing radars station which could be used for as well as the deterrence or could be used on the battlefield as well as for protection of the Polish airports, for example. So it's very important, particularly these days, new channel of activity where those who are interested should go quickly.
I see. Now,
and they've got money. That's also important, yes, because under the program so-called SAFE,
yes,
I think even Poland has got a credit line 45 billion euros. It's a lot of money.
Of course.
Available.
And now the UK would like to join the SAFE scheme as...
that's not that simple.
As well, precisely. But the UK is already outside of the EU. Now, the question here is whether this no club of six, as defined by Germany's finance minister, won't it ultimately lead to a sort of an erosion of the European Union?
Well, I think that anyway, European Union is under some process of reconstruction, and some solutions which were good in the past are not sufficient today. Just to stick to the example we discussed minutes ago, where it was indicated that one country could really hold up the whole process, which is of the critical importance for the union of over 400 million people. So that, and also so-called single market, which was trademark of the European Union, has to really become single.
Mr. Prime Minister, we've only slightly touched upon the topic of Europe. Now, Epstein files are sending ripples across Europe. Now, how would you comment on reports that Jeffrey Epstein was willing to conspire, I guess, with Russians to offer them some intel on Donald Trump?
That's the second side, or dark side of the really bad, ugly process of sex trafficking and all possible sex abuses Epstein used to carry out over 2 decades or so. And this is a big question. And I think, like in the UK, some interesting questions were not put forward regarding what actually was the purpose of establishing that network of connections, and what was the purpose and what informations were traded during those two decades. Because if we now learn more and more that, for example, at that time incumbent minister of the UK government transferred some really financially critical information to Epstein, that was at least an opportunity to make millions of English sterlings. But maybe it was even more if the information was not only related to the last financial crisis. What we have some smaller indications, and I have my particular personal sensitivity to that topic, because many years ago in Davos, in the evening, I was approached by Robert Maxwell, and he asked about the privatization, and let's call it was not the proper way of behavior by a gentleman talking business. So.
And nothing bad happened. In the end, Jan Krzysztof Bielecki, former Prime Minister of Poland, was our guest this evening. Thank you very much, Mr. Prime Minister.
Thank you.
And thank you for watching, and stay with us for more news and interviews here on TVP World.